Hey everyone, Phobos here, coming at you with another Act Guide, and this is going to be the Act Guide for Act 3. So, getting right into it, I'm just going to say that Act 3 is the first major step up in difficulty in the game. Acts 1 and 2 are relatively simple, and I feel like that's mostly because of the mob types and just kind of the damage that's done in general. So there's not a ton of dangerous elemental damage in the first two acts. I feel like it's used fairly sparingly, and a lot of the mobs that do it will attack you in melee range. There's not necessarily a ton of density. The mobs don't move very fast, right? It's all very easy, basic mob types for the most part. I'd say Act 1 is definitely the most basic. Act 2, they start to incorporate some little bit more challenging mobs. But Act 3 is the significant step up because not only are the mobs more difficult, but in terms of just how they behave, in terms of their abilities, but they do more damage and they take less damage. So all those factors kind of combined just makes for Act 3 the first relevant act, I would say, really, in terms of difficulty. It doesn't start off too bad. Uh, I'd say the scariest zone right off the bat is when you actually get into the sewers, because the sewers in Act 3 have a lot of ranged monsters in them, specifically alchemists, and they have dischargers. And dischargers basically explode. It's like an AoE Nova around them, deals a ton of lightning damage, and they can one-shot you if you have around 400 to 500 health and very low lightning res. So you really have to look out. Typically, I would say I'm not going to be giving you like hard resist guidelines for each zone, but I will let you know when there's relevant damage in a zone and when you should probably have at least some resist. This is gonna be the starting point where you're gonna really want to keep an eye on your resistances in general, and you want all your resistances. I would try to get them at least over 30 or 40. By the time you get to Act 4, you're really looking to have them, I'd say, above 50. You know, where you can, like obviously you can't necessarily get all of them there, but the closer you can get to max. It's nice if you have them around 40 to 50 because then you can just swap in a piece of gear like another ring or something and kind of like cap one res. So if you're going in to fight like a fire boss, then you can throw in a ruby ring. And then if you're already at 50 res, before that you'll go to around 70, 75 res, so you'll pretty much be close to capping out. So that's typically what I like to do. You're probably not going to have a ton of resist in here. And speaking of resist, this is going to be the time where I mention the bandits. So the bandits, you kill them in Act 2, but the rewards obviously help you throughout the game. So uh, Alira is probably the best bandit to take if you're new to the game and you're playing a crit build and you want some early help with leveling, because it gives 15 to all res, which is huge. It also gives 20 crit multi and like 5 mana regen. Now the mana regen and the life or the all res are going to be very helpful. The crit multi is not going to be helpful until later. I wouldn't take it if you're not a crit build because it's just kind of like a total waste. But if you are a crit build, people are going to make arguments that the 2 skill points are better, especially if they can get you, let's say, like another jewel slot or something, then they'd most likely definitely be better. But 20 crit multi and 15 all res with 5 mana regen is nothing to scoff at. Makes the game a lot easier. So if you're a new player, I would just recommend you pick that up if you're playing a crit build, because that bit of extra res is really nice. But yeah, like I said, sewers, dischargers are lightning damage based, and you really have to be careful if you get them in packs, because if you get them in packs, they're going to explode on you, and even if their explosions are staggered, they're probably going to stun you because they're going to take a significant amount of your life. So that means that you'll just kind of get chain stunned to death unless you log out. I like to pull them, like you definitely don't want to go into a big pack of them, right? Unless you can clear them quickly. Some of this is going to be contingent on how much damage you're doing, obviously. But if you're not able to DPS them down very quickly, be worried. Especially be careful of blue ones, because blue ones do more damage. They have mods on them, obviously, and they take less damage. So that just makes them like way more dangerous, right? Yellow ones are actually particularly dangerous because if you get the right combination of mods on a yellow one, you have 400 to 500 HP. You can probably actually get one shot. It's kind of unfortunate. You really just want to avoid yellow ones if possible. and if you can kill them quickly, you want to kill them. But if you see like a really dangerous one that has like, I don't know, extra crits on it or something like that, and your lightning res is kind of low, you may just want to even reset the zone if you can't get past it safely. So it really just depends, but be careful of dischargers. The alchemists are also annoying, but I'd say they're less dangerous than the dischargers. They do like chaos damage, which can be kind of scary for sure. So the sewers, big zone. Now there's going to be sewers here, right? And there's going to be marketplace sewers as well, I think. So there's going to be multiple parts of the sewers, I guess. I think it's actually only this one. Once you get to the marketplace, not too much scary there. Battlefront is the next zone that's going to be semi-scary. There's, what do you call them? Blackguards. Now there's two types of blackguards mainly. There's the melee ones that do shield charge. Those actually do significant damage if they hit you, so you have to be careful. And then there's the ones that cast lightning thorns and chain lightning. I don't know if they cast lightning thorns here, and even if they do, it's probably not super relevant because they're gonna die quickly. The thing you have to be worried about is if they cast lightning thorns, which is like, you'll see it, it's like a little, looks like lightning. It actually does look like lightning thorns appearing on the mob. It's like an aura that goes around them. If they cast it on like a rare or unique mob, you'll be doing significant damage to yourself because the mob won't die right away. The boss of the Battlefront is the same boss that's in the City of Sarin, and it's the same boss that's in the Western Forest, basically. He does like a lot of damage with his double strike. So in all these cases, you're just basically using a decoy totem or kiting him. Not really that scary, but like I said, the zone itself can be kind of scary. Nothing else too scary in this part. The docks can definitely be scary because they have these dogs that do an incinerate. So you're looking to basically get your fire res up a bit. Now, the problem with the docks that you're going to run into is there's a lot of density in there. So if you're not killing things and you're running away from something, you can easily run into another pack. There's also discharges in the dock. There's a lot of scary mob types in here, and the unique is actually pretty powerful. The good thing is that the incinerates have to scale up a bit, so unless you're getting hit by a ton of them at once, or you've stood in one for a while, you shouldn't be taking that much damage. So just if you have like a decent amount of fire res, you should be fine. Just take the dock slow. You know, you don't want to be running away from a pack of dogs and run into discharges, get discharged on, and then get breathed on. So just take it kind of slow if you're new. Work your way through, and you should be fine. And, yeah, the Ebony Barracks is basically the same zone as the Battlefront, but with more density, I would say. The boss is pretty unspectacular. If you stand in his rain of fire, you're going to take a substantial amount of damage, I would say, especially at this level, because your fire res probably isn't that great. But otherwise, he's not that dangerous. Lunaris Temple. This is probably the hardest zone in Act 3, and that's because of the miscreations, aka titty bitches. Now, the titty bitches are found on the second level. The first level is relatively easy, but there is a boss in there, basically Cole. He's kind of like Brutus. I wouldn't bother fighting him because he does a lot of damage and can kill you kind of easily. His slam is like easier to avoid than Brutus because it doesn't go out as far. But if it does hit you, it does a lot of damage, and you can get killed by that as well as other things in the room. When you first enter his room, you're probably going to get temp chains, but I would if you just keep walking and then eventually pop your Quicksilver once the temp chains lets up, you should be able to outrun him pretty easily. So getting into level 2, that's where the miscreations are. And you're going to want to be careful of Vuln down here because the whipping ones are going to do Vuln on hit, I believe. And then everything else in here is pretty much fizz damage. It's like fizz/fire or, you know, fizz. So it's going to make you take a significantly amount of increased damage. There's also a mob called Spine Crack, which is a unique whipping miscreation that does like a lightning strike, I believe. He has very little HP, so he's easy to kill, but he does a lot of damage if he hits you. So be careful of him. And the main thing that you're going to want to stay out of here is long corridors. And the reason why you don't want to stay in those is because there's packs of titty bitches at the ends of the corridors, and they basically fire down the corridors. So you want to kind of get through those as quickly as possible. You don't really want to be fighting the bitches in the corridor because you're just going to pretty much have to absorb all their shots at that point, and you're going to be relying on your life flask almost exclusively to keep you up, which can be sketchy. And that's another thing where you do want to be upgrading your life flask constantly, as always. And you should probably be, it's ideal if you have a 4-link by this point. You may not, it just depends on what build you're doing, the type of RNG you're getting. A lot of spells are fine on a 3-link plus one, but it's just something to keep in mind that you want to be working towards a 4-link, because the quicker you can kill these mobs, and this is like pretty much with anything in the game, right? The less damage that they're going to deal to you. There's actually a joke in this game where people on the Reddit specifically, they always mention how white mobs in this game are trash. You know, like the white and the blue and the yellow mobs, like, or the white and the blue mobs at least specifically, how they just evaporate. You know, because the power creep is so high and stuff like that. People just obliterate the screen. But the thing is that those mobs will actually be severely dangerous in a lot of cases, like insanely dangerous, if they didn't die quickly. Because even like white mobs in this game do a ton of damage, and blue mobs as well, and stuff like that. So the faster you can kill, it's essentially like a form of defense. That's why you want to be keeping your links updated. You want to be keeping your spell levels updated. You want to be making sure you're allocating points in the tree. You want to be getting life, obviously, and res, but you want to also be making sure you're getting some damage so that you can effectively, you know, clear things out, unless you have a skill that really doesn't need any skilling from the tree at all. So just a side note about, you know, dealing with mobs in general in this act, because like I said, this is like the act where the power really creeps up on you. But yeah, so what you're going to want to do mostly is just run through the corridors, get to the end, and then the miscreations are going to be firing probably still in the direction they were, because they pick a direction and fire, and they have like a channel time, and that's where it's safe to attack them. So, you know, never try and attack them face on, basically. Always try and do that. Always be on the move is the key. If you're always on the move in here, you never want to panic and freeze when they hit you, right? And just keep like running into something. You want to be running through, essentially. And that's the easiest way you'll survive this zone. Or if you have just something that's like a ranged attack, it's really easy to clear them with. So watch out around corners, and watch up when you're going up levels, because there's often packs around corners and there's packs around levels. So when you're going from one level to the next upstairs, something like that, there's typically a pack waiting for you at this top. So get right up those stairs, take a left or a right really quick. The boss in here is Piety. Piety is not very hard, honestly. They buffed her like melee fire form a while back, and it does do substantial damage if you like let it stack up on you and you get hit a ton. So you kind of want to kite her a bit, even when she's in fire form now. It's not as trivial as it was a lot of patches ago, but still not that much damage unless your fire res is really low. The lightning is actually a bit underrated, because it can, if you stand in the lightning storm, it still does substantial damage, and if your lightning is low, you can definitely die to it. So I would not get hit by that, but it's just very easy to avoid, and it doesn't really take up a lot of the room. Obviously, the most prominent dangerous part is typically her cold form. You can obviously control this by killing the cold portals, and then if she does get into a cold thing, just LOS behind pillars. Just be wary of her teleporting, right? Because she can teleport on top of you even if you're LOS behind a pillar. So Piety shouldn't be that hard, but once you kill her, go to the Imperial Gardens. This zone has porcupines in it. You have to be somewhat careful, because if you kill a bunch of porcupines at once, when their on-death animation is a bunch of spikes, which means that you're probably going to get hit a lot, especially if you're a melee or a close range build. If you're a range build, you don't have to worry about it as much. So just try not to kill tons of porcupines. There's a unique porcupine here that does fairly substantial damage. So you don't really have to fight him if you don't want. I think he does like a frost bolt on death, which does quite a lot of damage. So just be cognizant of that when you're killing him. Don't be right on top of him when you're killing him, because I think it's possible it can shotgun, and if it does, it'll do a lot of damage to you. So be very careful of him. And then once you open the door and you get into the Scepter of God, you're basically just worried about these little acolytes that do the freezing pulse. If you have a bit of cold res that you can spare to throw on, I would throw it on here, because you're probably, if you're going to die to anything, it's going to be those guys, because they do a lot of damage and they slow you, making it easier for the other ones to hit you. And freezing pulse is very difficult to avoid because it comes out very quickly. The projectile speed's pretty fast. The Arctic breath guys are also quite annoying, and they can jump on top of you after you've already been frozen. So, and Arctic breath can shotgun if it hits you close enough, I believe. So be wary of them. And then there's the shield people, which I'm forgetting what they're called right now, but the evangelists, yeah, where they create the physical spell on the ground that does damage. Those hit pretty hard, and obviously the shields are annoying because they can protect them and other things. just be careful because you have to run up to them to kill them, but don't YOLO into a pack, you know, because if they're overlapped on each other, it can be very difficult to discern which one you're actually attacking. If you're leeching, you won't leech if you're attacking into a shield, obviously. So there can be a lot of ways those can kill you if they're badly positioned and then you badly position yourself inside of them, essentially. Always be cognizant around those, and if you need to, just take it slow. There's a Basilisk in here. Don't fuck with him because he does a lot of damage, and he's very hard to kill. There's also a Trapper guy who does a lot of damage. Just run past him. If you run past him right away, you shouldn't get hit with too many traps. The problem is if you fuck around his room for too long, he'll put a lot of traps down, and then they can all go off at once, and that is what can really kill you. Again, lightning damage here, so lightning damage is a pretty big theme in this act. Have your topazes ready. And the last thing is Dominus, and Dominus isn't really that hard. A couple things to note is that just don't stand in the Cyclone guy's Cyclone in the first 3 ads, and the Fire guy's thing looks a lot worse than it actually is unless you have like no fire res. So you can afford to get hit by that a bit. The Sparker does almost nothing. The Miscreation, the titty bitch that has the haste aura in the second group of them that comes out, that's the scary one. You want to kill her as quickly as possible. You have to be careful because her animation actually finishes on the channel very quickly because she has a haste aura. So you're going to dodge it attacking, you're going to dodge it, then you're going to be attacking her, and then she's going to all of a sudden be on you again and spamming in your direction. So you want to be constantly moving, constantly doing damage to her. Kill her as quickly as possible. Then the Reeve guy spawns, or he'll already be spawned. He does decent damage, but not really too concerning, so just kill him. And then there's an EK one that also does reasonable damage, but the titty bitch one is really the main problem. So just get on her, kill her, don't get hit by her thing. If you stay on that channel for a reasonable amount of time, you're going to die. Phase 2 Dominus. His Touch of God can definitely kill you, most likely. You can survive it, I'm sure. Just depends on the circumstances, how much HP, how much res, but don't plan on getting hit by that. If you get slowed by the totems, that's your first priority, is to get out, because he can just teleport on top of you at any time and slam the ground. So never play around the totems, or never like stay slowed in the totems. Other than that, you want to fight him kind of like when you first enter into the room near the stairs, on the ledge above, and you just LOS him around the center thing. So you can LOS his breath like that, or his a little thing he shoots out of his hands. Does lightning damage. Again, does high damage if you stand in it. You don't have much lightning res. So best to just completely avoid that. You don't really have to worry about the kamikaze guys in the phase 2, because if you're fighting him like close to where you come in, not many of them will hit you and you can have ample time to kill them. And once you push him into phase 3, it's pretty much just a DPS check. If you have good DPS, he's going to go down really easily. If you don't, he's going to be annoying. Basically, you want to be inside the circle for the rain, obviously, and then when he hits you, I think he applies 2 stacks of a bleed. You can either have a bleed immune flask, but you don't really need one. You can just pour it out. If the bleed stacks get too high, come back in, they'll be cleared. If your damage isn't really high, you're going to have to probably do some ad clear up, because he ends up spawning a lot of ads. So it's nice to have kind of like an AoE skill that can damage him and the ads, because then you can angle it in a way that's hitting one of the portals that he spawns as well as him. And that's pretty much all needs to be said about Dominus. Not a very challenging fight. Certainly at least not compared to some of the other fights to come. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. Sorry this one was a bit long, but like I said, this is I'd say it's a critical act, so I wasn't just explaining in these videos where I'm talking about an act that it's like a critical point in the game. I'm going to be explaining why it's that way, basically, and what you can do. So there was a bit more of general information in this video than the prior ones, in terms of, you know, making sure to tell you to keep up with all your stuff up to date, because this is the point where the damage really starts to get more significant. So if that happens again, which is probably going to be like Act 5 and then maybe another act, those videos will be longer, but we're going to try and keep them around 5 to 10. This one was like 20, so fairly substantially over, but I think it's worth it, because you guys are probably going to want all the information you can get. So thanks for watching again, and talk to you guys later.